This is the Cannabis Update Podcast Video Edition, where we give leaders and organizations an opportunity to tell their stories and share information. Welcome to the podcast, Andrew.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, let's start off just by catching up a little bit because we had you on the podcast early last year, about a year ago. How you been doing?
It's been great. It's been it's certainly been a challenging year. We haven't been immune from what's happened in Canada with the licensed producers, but no, overall, we're not a cannabis company. We're a technology company, so we just keep chugging along, gathering data and providing data to customers. So
maybe you can dig a little deeper for us. How is the Strainprint business model going since you're an ancillary business in the space?
So from a data perspective, we've had phenomenal success, and we continue to drive data because we have a free app for patients. The patients use that app to track their medical outcomes. And again, we focus on the medical side of the business because we're interested in decoding the science of cannabis. And, it's typically patients trying to figure out what's working best for them based on chemical profile of products. So we'll talk about that in a second, why that's important with TruTrace. But from a data perspective, we are, the largest data provider in the world of patient-reported outcomes. So it's the largest real-world evidence study in the world. There's over 1 million, almost 1.6 million patient-reported outcomes, 80 million data points. We grew 50% last year in a down year, which was amazing. And, we continue to drive on that side. On the sales side of the business, like I said, we weren't immune from the effects of what happened to the licensed producers in the marketplace. And, we had a couple of our customers go out of business, and we had some changes in the clinic side of the business. So we primarily gather data and we sell data. And so we gather data from patients on the free app, and we sell data to industry and to government and to pharmacy and et cetera. And so for the licensed producers in the clinics, they've been hard hit. And that naturally trickles down to us because they're our customers. So what it forced us to do, and we recognized that back in August of last summer, we started to see that happening. And by August of last summer, we started to pivot a little bit in terms of who we were selling our data to, and how we were selling data. So we primarily were selling through our Strainprint Analytics software as a service platform. But what we found is a lot of our customers didn't have somebody on staff devoted to actually sitting at the terminal and pulling out the nuggets from our analytics platform. So they started engaging us to do custom research. So custom research became a bigger portion of our sales than analytics were last year. I think that will cycle back this year, but custom research still is a big component. And at the same time, we began to sell into government, and we began to sell into insurance and into pharma. And so interesting that the industry is suffering right now because it's immature, and the players are still working themselves through the system, and who the leaders will and who the survivors will be, unfortunately. But in pharma and insurance and government, they're mature industries, and they need this data. Believe it or not, more so than the industry needs it. So that's been a positive thing for us, and they're higher value sales also. So that's a good thing for us as well.
You guys are definitely evolving. I was going to ask you what changes you saw in the last year, but maybe from a consumer perspective or a user perspective, what changes has your app had?
So, just like, if we go back to October 2018, when the recreational program was launched in Canada, the producers didn't have enough product to be able to service both the recreational channel and the medical channel. So they took product from the medical channel and just rebranded it in the recreational channel. And just like we saw in Colorado in 2014, the patients suffered. So patients didn't know where to get their products. And so patients that normally would get products directly from their producer ended up having to go to the OCS to get their products. If we just talk about Ontario, they went to recreational retailers because that's where the products were, because they were right out of stock in the medical side. So where we saw as the patients who were started tracking products that we didn't have in our platform, we then were forced to go into the recreational world and pull in all the recreational products. Now, we know patients track both medical products and our recreational users also, typically, right? So that's a Canadian thing, but not unlike what we see in certain states where patients also track their own stuff and might want to get high at night just because that's their form of recreation. And so that was a big change for us, being able to start to get the products from the recreational channel. But what it did for us was to be able to identify where there's a match. So a lot of those medical products we could then recommend to patients who could only find them in the rec channel. Hey, by the way, did you know that this product is the same as this product?
All
And
right.
so that opened up a whole new world and opened our eyes to what the possibilities were on the recreational side. But patients are still tracking. You know, like I said, we grew 50% last year, which is massive in any data set. But where we're also starting to see it is as we move into other jurisdictions. So we took a very cautious approach in the U.S. because every market's an island, as you know, every state's an island. And we focused on one state in particular that was medically focused, which was Florida. And now, as we start to go into other states, like today, almost, I think 40% of our growth is coming from Florida.
Wow.
So yeah, and that's just started. Like we just launched that late in the year last year. So now as we go into other states, we expect to see that growth. You know, they're 10 times the population, 10 times the user base. As we start to go into the states, we'll see more and more of that. But for us also, another focus for this year will be the West Coast. You know, we've done a really good job nationwide looking at the big picture, but there's massive opportunity in Alberta, British Columbia. Some of the learnings from our last year in British Columbia are there are a ton of patients in the province that aren't in the legal system. And there's no motivation to get from a medical patient perspective in British Columbia. If you've been a patient, you've been using product from your source for the last 10 years. Where's the motivation to go spend more and get less fresh product from the legal system? So we have to figure that out, and that's a systemic challenge. That's not a producer or a data company's challenge. It's really there's taxation in the middle, there's government in the middle. We have to figure out how to level that off, or we're never going to change the way people purchase today.
It's great to see the flexibility and the growth with you guys. One of the things I wanted to ask One of the things I wanted to ask you guys about was the joint venture that I read about. Now, it's a company called TruTrace that you're now doing business with, headed by Robert Galarza, who I interviewed last year when he was heading the same company but a different name, right? Blockstrain. So how did that relationship, start, and what does it mean to Strainprint?
First of all, Robert and his co-founder Tommy and my co-founder Dave and I have become really close friends. So we've been very fortunate to build that friendship. Very much aligned in terms of providing technologies to the marketplace as an ancillary business, and neither one of us really touches plant in that perspective. We don't retail it, we don't grow it. But we got put together because we are a vendor to Shoppers Drug Mart, and so the history is Shoppers Drug Mart, is a pharmacy, and they're regulated as a pharmacy. They're regulated as a public company, and now they're regulated as a cannabis company. And so when they were granted their license to distribute on behalf of 12 suppliers of the licensed producers, they were quite surprised at the lack of consistency and compliance in the products that were coming to them for them to retail. And just like in the consumer packaged good industry, they were looking for a third-party source to validate those products. And along came TruTrace, which was called Blockstrain at the time, but really the technology that they're based on, certainly the data is appended onto a blockchain, but at the end of the day, they're much broader than that. So it's all logistics and genetic certification of the product that just happens to sit on it. And that in turn will tell and confirm to shoppers what the product actually is. So that's the first thing, is that they need to understand that when they get a package that says Girl Scout cookie, they don't really care you don't care about the lineage per se, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to people who have been in the industry for decades. But Girl Scout cookie, the name Girl Scout cookie is irrelevant from a medical perspective. What's in the Girl Scout cookie, or in that particular product that a patient is taking, that's what's important, because Tylenol has to be Tylenol when the pharmacy puts it on the shelves every time. So this will help shoppers to make sure through a third-party validation source that the products that they're getting and that they're selling as X are actually X.
Right.
And for us, what it means is when we track, when our patients track products, and when we help the doctors and pharmacists to make recommendations, our data will be more accurate, because not only are we tracking against the certificate of analysis that we typically get with THC and CBD and expanded cannabinoids and terpenes, but it'll actually be genetically certified, and every batch will be appended to the blockchain. And so it becomes a way to validate products and for us to make it more accurate.
I like that. And one thing I've said a million times over is the thing about the legal market is if I'm buying, especially when it comes to edibles or gel caps, when you're buying a certain dose, you know you're getting a certain dose. But you guys are digging a little deeper. You guys are verifying genetics on, I guess, on a molecular level through TrueTrace. Can you expand a bit on why that makes Strainprint better for consumers and for companies?
Sure. So, cannabis is complex, right? There's 450 chemical constituents in every time you grow the plant. So, not only every time you grow the plant, but if you're growing the same seed in the same room, it's still going to be different batch over batch, no matter how good the producer is. So this is talking about in the dried flower scenario, which even today still represents the largest percentage. So for us, we help patients to track that use of cannabis against a chemical profile, not against Girl Scout cookie or OG Kush or whatever you want to call it. And that in turn, that along with dose and route of administration helps us to understand that things that are high in myrcene and high in CBN and low in beta caryophyllene and have this much THCV, for example, are good for women 35 years old treating fibromyalgia, right? So it's that relative combination of chemical constituents that is the most important thing when we're prescribing or authorizing cannabis for a particular use. Even outside of the medical system, in the recreational world, when it's effect driven, right? If I want something that's calming, you need to know what are the chemical ingredients, not just THC and CBD, and not just a ratio of THC and CBD, which is totally, I don't want to say irrelevant, but is totally, is really just one part of the situation. So for us, we have 4 tiers of data. When patients track products that they enter themselves, that's what we call the base level of data. The next level up is data that's been entered through certificate of analysis that we get from producers or directly from the labs with THC and CBD. The next level up will be THC, CBD, expanded cannabinoids and terpenes, all verified by certificate of analysis from a lab. And then the top level would be TrueTrace type data, which is genetically certified data. So you can imagine that when you're tracking, you're going to have different levels. Now, the bulk of our data today is level 2 and 3, THC, CBD, and expanded cannabinoids. But the genetic validation is stuff that is really important to us. So in our products, you'll be able to see a shield that says this has been genetically certified by TrueTrace. So you'll be able to tell that when you're tracking a product and when you bought that product, that it is listed at a much higher level than just what typically you're getting from a certificate of analysis today. And from the business side of it, when a doctor or a pharmacist or a policymaker at the government level is looking at our data and our platform to see what typical effects are and what the data actually shows, they'll show the difference between a validated source and a non-validated source. And what we've learned over the last 3.5 years of doing this is products that have more detail attached to them are the ones that actually get tracked better and have better outcomes against them, and which doctors want to recommend more because patients and doctors want to know what's in their products.
Yeah, absolutely. It is what it says it is. Talk to me a little bit about Robert Galarza. You guys are both recovering lawyers. But what's important anytime you invest in a company or you support a company is who are the leaders? So what's your relationship like with him?
Like I said, we've been really fortunate. We definitely have a shared background. We're both, as you call it, recovering lawyers. We both have been running tech companies I've been doing this for 25 years, and he has pretty close behind. So we've been, we've been really fortunate to build a good friendship and to be able to be aligned in terms of how we go to market. Now, they're a public company, we're a private company, so a little bit different in our approach and in how we went to market and in how we have to operate in the market today. But totally aligned in supporting our customers and supporting our patients and providing the best we can using technology.
I'd like to ask you about your plans for here forward, but I think you already kind of articulated that. So let me just finish by asking you if you have any final thoughts, anything you want to say.
Well, I would like to just take a couple things. So for 2020, we're now with all the data we have, we're starting to empower product formulators. So we're doing a lot of custom research right now. People are engaging us to look into the data and tell us what's happening by jurisdiction, by symptom, by et cetera. As you dive down to the data, custom research, product formulation, and now we're starting to sell through to governments and to pharma and to insurance. And so that's the focus for us for 2020. We feel very strong right now because, I hate to say this, but the downturn has kind of affected others who were behind us. We had a pretty strong first mover advantage, and we're not geniuses by any means. We just we put out product and we were early out, and we were fortunate to. Well, some people are geniuses here. Maybe just not me. We put out these products that got really good traction, and so now we have a really great leadership position now. And now tied in with TruTrace, it means a lot because we'll be able to have the most accurate data available, and we'll start to take them into our enterprise opportunities with other governments throughout the U.S. And there'll be joint sale opportunities. But yeah, like we're feeling strong, and we're very excited about. You'll hear a bunch of new integration announcements coming in the next little while as well. We have version 2 of our app and our analytics platforms coming out. And, again, it's a patient focus for us. It's understanding the science of cannabis and helping to make it better for everybody who's using it for medical or recreational purposes.
Nice. How do people find out about Strainprint online?
So you can download the app for free on either the iOS and Android store. It's just Strainprint, STRAINPRINT. At Strainprint on all the relevant social sites. Our website is www.strainprint.ca. And if you're interested in custom research or data or purchasing our data for formulation, info@strainprint.ca, and we would love to work with you.
And you have the coolest Twitter handle in the universe, Rockstar Inc., if anybody wants to follow Andrew Muroff on Twitter. Thanks for doing this, man. Super informative, and it's so nice to see you guys doing well.
Thank you so much for having us, and really always appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Cannabis Update podcast. We do our very best to be as accurate as possible, but take no responsibility for inaccurate details or facts. If something interests you, we're glad to have brought it to your attention, but please take the time to research the details for yourself.